Welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Hello, hello. Hmm. Nice to be here. Nice to see you. And as people continue to arrive, we can just find our seats. Yeah, I like to move around, shake a little bit, stretch, especially if it's early for you. Even if it's not, it's nice to find the body. uh, and then might take a few breaths. Nice long breaths, maybe some sighs. And then coming into some stillness here, softness, space. Just draw attention through the body. Like liquid filling a vessel. It takes on the shape of the vessel. So allowing awareness to pour through. Perhaps even some gratitude for this body. All streams of experience flow through this body. From the time we're born to the time we pass on. And as you allow awareness to fill this body, noticing any places of resistance or holding or tension. Nothing wrong with these places. Not even necessary to do anything about them, just knowing they're there. And allowing the breath to bring a sense of ease, comfort, nourishment. Gratitude for this physical body and then also this body of the Sangha, this opportunity to gather together. Let's take a nice long inhale through the nose and release out of the mouth. Perhaps making the exhale audible. Let's do that again. Inhale. And let it go. And once again, inhale. And this time as you exhale, slowly opening the eyes, taking in vision and light. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Adam Stonebraker, and I'm a core teacher with Sacred Mountain Sangha. And I'm really happy to be joining you here today. Yeah. So the rhythm of this, how this morning practice works is we'll start with some chanting, and then we'll go into some still meditation, and then I'll offer some Dharma words. And that usually ends around 1. And then you have the option after that to stay on for a little longer for some Q&A. Or some reflections or some insights from the Dharma words, or whatever you'd like to share. The intention here is just to kind of build some Sangha and familiarity with one another, but also to clarify anything that was confusing or you had a question about. So I'm going to put the chanting book in the chat here. Oh, there it is. It's already there by magic. And so if you have difficulty opening that, let me know, and we can try something different. And so we'll begin chanting on page 3, which is really where the chanting begins. We'll start at the top of page 3 with the Namo Tassa Bhagavato, and then we'll chant the 3 refuges. And then we'll move on to page 4. And then from there, I'll let you know. Okay, don't want you to have to remember too much right now. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing we do is honor the Buddha, Namo Tassa, honoring that which is worthy of honor, which is something that the Buddha asked us to do. So it was a skillful way to live, be in the world, is to put our attention towards and honor those things that are worthy of honor. Let's exhale together. And then inhale. Namo tassa bhagavato
arahato sama
sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Udam saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Itipiso bhagava araham samma sambuddho bija charana sampano sugato lokavidu anutaro bodhisattva sarati sata deva manusanam buddho bhagavati savakato bhagavata Dhammo sanditiko akadiko ehipasiko opanayiko pachatam verita bhovenu iti supatipano bhagavato sabakasango ujupatipano bhagavato sabakasango Naya Patipano Bhagavato Savakasango Sami Chipatipano Bhagavato Savakasango Yadidam Chattari Purisayogania Tapurisapugaha Esa Bhagavato Savakasango Ahnayo Pahnahiyo, Dakinahiyo, Anjali Karaniyo, Anutaram, Punyakitam Loka Sati. Let's just pause here for a moment. Some gratitude and acknowledgement for these teachings that go back thousands of years. Buddha 2,600 years ago and even before. Originating in South Asia, Nepal, India, Ganges Valley, and spreading from there, south and north, and west and east. Gratitude and acknowledgement of all the millions of practitioners who dedicated their lives to passing on these teachings and keeping them alive through great sacrifice and time, effort. It is because of them that we can sit here and chant these teachings and explore. And wake up. Thank you. All right. So let's do the 5 subjects for frequent recollection, which is on page 7, very top half. Buddha said it's very wise to think on these things every day. Now let us chant the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill. Of that I will be the heir. Thus we should frequently recollect. Let's go all the way down to the Great Compassion Mantra, page 12. Perhaps you can dedicate this to someone or something or some situation that's going on in the world or in your life, and bringing particular attention to all of the tumult happening in the Middle East, Israel, Palestine. Pray for peace, pray for justice, pray for compassion. Namo Dabe Quan Shi Yin Bu Sa Namo Dabe Quan Shi Yin Bu Sa Namo Dabe Quan Shi Yin Bu Sa Namo Halla Danno Dolage Namo Ariye Podureri Shamo Lage Buddhi Sato Paye Moa Sato Paye Moa Jaruni Jayin Nansa Panna Paye Suna Nura Shin Namo Shiri Toimang Polu Jiri Shurfula Lung Toban Namo Nola Ginger Shiri Moha Pando Samme Sappadatta Shubhanga Shuyun Sappa Sado Namo Pasado Namo Pachemo Fattado Dajatana Napalushi Lujari Yishini Moha Buddhi Sato Sappa Sappa Mola Mola Mushin Mushirido Yunjuru Juru Jimang Duru Duru Vashayiri Moha Vashayiri Tola Tola Dilini Jala Jala Momo Famola Mudiri Ishi Ishi Sherno Sherno Wada Shanvoda Shari Vasha Vashan Boda Shaye Hulu Hulu Mola Hulu Hulu Shiri Sola Sola Sulu Sulu Bhutiye Bhutiye Bhuttoye Bhuttoye Miririye Nola Ginger Diri Shiny No Paya Mono supashito ye supa mohashito ye supashito yui sherpanaye Nola ginger supaha mola nola supaha shiru sangha mucho ye supaha Shito ye supaha jajila shito ye supaha bodo more shito ye supaha nola ginger panjela ye supaha mobadi shangjela ye supaha namo haladano do ye namo ali ye polujiri shaubola ye sopahanan chidandu mandola pato ye sopa Namo Kwanche Yin Busa Ona Mo Kwanche Yin Busa Enamo Kwanche Yin Busa Ona Mo Kwanche Yin Busa Enamo Kwanche Yin Busa Ona Mo Kwanche Yin Busa. Let's allow these vibrations to guide us, lead us into some stillness, whether this be sitting or standing or lying down. Just notice how the chanting feels in the body now, or where it's led you. You might notice the bodily form itself, the vibrations. A particular feeling tone. And as sensation fades, notice other sensations arise. As thoughts fall away, other thoughts arise. The awareness remains. And the breath anchors and grounds us. Okay, thank you. Why don't you just move around a little bit, stretch, feel. If you need to stand up for a moment, please do. And I'll start talking. Yeah. And yeah, just know that, remember that after at 1 o'clock we'll be finished, but then afterwards you could stay if you have some questions or if there's anything that comes up during this reflection. And yeah, today I thought I'd just talk about the aggregates a little bit. The aggregates have been something that has been pretty profound for my practice, just kind of understanding them and what they're all about. And really just the arising and and falling away of phenomena and the insubstantiality of phenomena. But first, just a little something on the Four Noble Truths, just real quick. Perhaps when you first learned about Buddhism, you went to a Buddhism class. The Four Noble Truths may have been the first thing that you learned. It wasn't the first thing I learned. I started in Zen, and they don't really talk about stuff like that. But we tend to think of the Four Noble Truths as the main teaching of the Buddha. But if you look at the suttas as a whole, the Buddha really didn't talk about the Four Noble Truths very much. I think in all of the suttas, the Four Noble Truths as a group are mentioned 9 times, something like that. Which, when I first heard that or discovered that, I was kind of shocked by it. It was only 9 times because we think of the Buddha and we think of the Four Noble Truths. And when the Noble Truths are mentioned throughout the suttas, they're mentioned in different ways every time. Sometimes it's all 4, sometimes it's just 2, sometimes there's different formulations and emphases. It just depends on how the Buddha was teaching that day. And so I think it's really important to kind of examine what the central teaching of the Four Noble Truths is. It works really well, and the Four Noble Truths, as probably we know them, it's a really great formula, and it does kind of encapsulate Buddhism right there. But as far as the teaching of the Buddha, what was he really trying to get across? So the first noble truth is that life is suffering. And I know there's a lot of ways to kind of water that down and say life is discomfort and all these things, but kind of a very straightforward translation of what the Buddha said is life is suffering. But that's like not the central insight here. Really, the life is suffering is a byproduct of something else. Life is suffering because there's a reason for that. And the reason is given in the second noble truth. We suffer because we cling to things. Specifically, we cling to various types of phenomena. Whether that be a thought or a belief or a pattern or a person or the self. We have a pattern of clinging, and to cling to something is to suffer. But why? Why is to cling to suffer? Because to cling to something is a living and active denial of the main characteristic of this material world, which is impermanence. Things change. Things are constantly changing. That is the fundamental characteristic of this material world, of this phenomenal world. Everything, everything, every single thing in life changes. And our suffering comes from denying this, whether it's conscious or unconscious, usually unconscious. And so we cling. And when we cling, we go against the very laws of nature. Yeah. And therefore we suffer because we're going against the way things naturally are. Because we're incongruent with the way life is. And the way things are is the very definition of Dharma. Dharma, natural law, the way things are, the natural universe. Now, this isn't something that the Buddha made up. This isn't a philosophy. This isn't a belief system. This isn't a dogma. This isn't a way to achieve power. Quite the opposite. Just like on our planet, the rules of nature, the laws of nature, there is gravity. That's not a belief. It's a fact. It's a law of nature. It's the way things are. And if we go against the law of nature by stepping off a cliff, gravity will take hold and will plummet, right? And we suffer because of that. So this law of nature is something that we're all subject to. And we know that impermanence is a law of nature because there's not one thing in this entire physical universe that is permanent. Not one thing. Everything, every single thing is constantly changing. And if everything is constantly changing, then there's no true substantiality to anything. Thought, feeling, perception, impulse, consciousness. So to come to terms with this is our practice. And we could look at the teaching of the Buddha as just different ways, different angles of describing this. This is our central problem here. This is the central issue that we're all dealing with, consciously or unconsciously. And this is impossible for our brain to understand. Like this brain right here can't understand this because this brain is a physical phenomenon. Conceptually, we can get it, but there's but living like it, the true realization of it, the brain can't ascertain because the brain can't get enlightened. It's not the brain that gets enlightened. It's not the brain that wakes up. It's not the brain that one day, through enough practice will become clear. It's something beyond the brain or beyond the physical universe that's not bound to the laws of this physical phenomenal universe. And so the ego is the kind of the central kind of insidious part of our psyche that is attempting to solidify. And so the ego doesn't get this either, and the ego spends all of its time trying to convince us otherwise, that there is concrete reality, that there are things that don't change. In fact, the ego is a result of this very denial of this law of impermanence. And again, conceptually, we may understand this, But many of us, including me, of course, live as if this isn't true. And again, this can be conscious or unconscious. There can be an underlying belief that motivates a lot of our activities and our actions and our behaviors in this world. And so there's this unconscious attempt to concretize reality. Yeah. And when we feel like we can concretize reality, that's accompanied by a positive feeling sometimes. Yeah, it feels kind of good. I am this. This temporary satisfaction of possibly a concretized thing. Like, I am this type of person, or I believe this thing, or I'm this type of thing. That feels pretty good temporarily. There's a short-term good feeling, positive feeling from that. But when this will eventually lead to suffering, because the nature of life is change. To cling to something is to suffer. The nature of the universe, the nature of life is freedom. It's complete freedom. It's moving. It's enlightenment. It's awake. This body, this ego, this personality is impermanent. This suffering is impermanent. This joy is impermanent. It's all impermanent. And we live right in the middle of this impermanent. In fact, we are it. Yeah. And so we flow with life. But in our day-to-day, it's not very skillful to go about our daily business living this reality of impermanence, because there are things we have to do to be responsible humans on the planet. Yeah. And so the Buddha gave us, various ways to go about living our lives in skillful ways that support this practice or support this truth. Various ways to look at life, ways to contextualize life so that we can live amongst one another in peace. But the real beauty of Buddhism, one of them is that we can live in the world, but we don't have to be of the world, because the world is constantly built. It's built upon, and it's constantly trying to convince us of its solidity. So we can act in the world and be motivated, or work within the knowledge of, or allow the wisdom to infuse, the wisdom of impermanence to infuse all that we do, all activity, so that we aren't attached to it. We do what needs to be done, and then we let it go. And this understanding creates compassion and skill. The old Zen saying, we chop wood and we carry water. Yeah. We do what's in front of us with 100% focus. Yeah. Because we know that it's impermanent, which kind of seems counterintuitive. And so this is the main teaching of the Buddha. This is the teaching of Buddhism. Suzuki Roshi was once asked to just, if he could encapsulate, I think it was Suzuki Roshi, if he could encapsulate Buddhism into just a pithy phrase, all of it, could he do that? And he said, yes, things change. Everything changes. And once we can understand impermanence fully, the other two marks of existence, so the three marks of existence, impermanence, not self, and dukkha, the other two start to make sense. Dukkha makes sense if we understand impermanence. And anatta makes sense if we understand impermanence. Because if everything is impermanent, then there can't be a permanent self, right? If everything is constantly changing, how can there be a self? So we look at various ways that the Buddha helped us to see and reflect upon impermanence. to give us some type of reference point or contextualization, to help us kind of break the spell. And one of the things he pointed out was what was most available to us, which is our body, our physical body. And the Buddha mentioned the body more than anything else in the suttas, way more than anything else. So constantly coming back to the body. And one of the ways we can look at the body is through the point of view of the aggregates. So this very body and being, this current incarnation right here, right now, is made of various constituents or aggregates. The word is khandha in Pali or skandha in Sanskrit, which just means heaps or piles, or these various piles. And I like to look at them as just 5 different categories of our human experience, all of which are subject to clinging for sure. And the five categories are rupa, form, so the physical body, form, or thought, form, whatever form, rupa. Vedana, which is feeling or feeling tone or sensation that's really filtered through a tone or a feeling tone. Sanya, which is perception, which is conditioned by our history. Sankharas are mental formations or programs or concoctions or patterns in our thinking. And then vijnana, consciousness, which is consciousness filtered through our 6 senses. So the 5 senses we know, and then our thinking mind as well. So consciousness, how we experience consciousness through the senses is vijnana. So when the Buddha talked about these, he wasn't trying to describe what we're made up of, but he was trying to give us a window into things we could possibly might cling to. And you'll notice when you read the suttas that the Buddha was always teaching about practice. He wasn't a philosopher. He was pointing things out directly to us. Practices, they're all practices. And so reading the suttas, I'd encourage you to see them all as practices. They're all practices. He's not just talking. He's not just trying to explain something. He's actually giving us a window into realization in ways that we can look into reality in different ways. And so the aggregates have been a very profound way, a very, very profound contemplation for me to see through these various windows. I knew this was too ambitious to get through. There's another way to look at this too. We can also look at it. It's 5 possible ways that we can get caught up into clinging. So, rupa, form. How often do we get caught up in this form? Yeah. Vedana. How much do we strategize our lives? Pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. How deeply do we strategize our lives around moving towards what's pleasant and avoiding what's unpleasant? Yeah. Do we curate our lives? We all do that. Yeah. So in that way, we're making it permanent, this thing that's not. Perception. We think our perceptions are real when they're really just based on experience from the past. Yeah. Everything we perceive, we see through the filter of our past, our conditioning. Sankhara, mental formations, these programs that we're running that are, again, from our history, that are created. Vijnana, consciousness, our senses we take as being permanent, is specifically our thinking mind. Yeah. I am my thoughts. Things like this. We think our thinking is us, where they're really just happening to us, like smells, sights, sounds. And so I know I have to end here, but I would encourage you to really look into this. Look into these 5 categories, these aggregates, and just start to see where you might cling and see them as ways of practice. Yeah. And we sit with them, and we work with them, and we see them in daily life, and we start to see and understand how we can begin to let go of them. All right, maybe there'll be maybe next time I talk, there'll be a part 2. But I have to end there because it is 1 o'clock. But before you go, don't leave yet. I want to tell you that we have some really cool things coming up. That Tanisara will be joining Andy Wolf, who's a really wonderful teacher, for the second in their series of events addressing factors of climate Dharma. This one is called On Healing Ourselves and Our World, and it's scheduled for Friday, October 20th, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. And then a new class in our Sacred Mountain Sangha Sacred Practice series. You'll be seeing these coming over the next year. And coming up at the end of October, it's perfect for beginners and those who are interested in deepening their practice. It's called Foundations of Mindfulness. And it's led by Gulu Singh, who's one of our core teachers with Sacred Mountain Sangha. And it's a 4-week class, and we'll start on Wednesday, October 25th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So Foundations of Buddhist Mindfulness. Also, if you'd like to offer dana to Sacred Mountain Sangha or to the teachers of the Sunday Sit, there's a link in the chat that you can follow and donate some money, give some generosity, or just send kind words to us or feedback through that link. Again, feel free to stay on and we'll talk as long as you'd like to. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for being here. And it's so wonderful to sit in Sangha. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a beautiful week.